Hey guys, Pete here. Need to have a chat to you about slalom. So in the last few years, it's become really apparent due to the video that slalom scoring isn't going the way it should. And this has been a problem, it turns out, for a lot of years. It's just we're starting to really be able to catch it as we've got frame rates above 30 frames a second. We are really starting to see that an early down, particularly, but even a late lift, is very hard for the judges to judge it. And what's been happening is that skiers are going to World Championships, we get all the scores out at the end of it, and then we look at those scores and we take them to record review because someone's broken a record, we watch it on video, and we work out that we're cutting it to pieces. And it's not by one or two crosses, they're losing, somewhere around 1.5 to 2 every time it goes to video. So there's an issue there, and that issue is that are we awarding the best skier the gold medal? And you could argue that this is happening at a local, state, and international level because it's simply very hard to judge a late lift or an early down. And it's not just the fairness. One thing that we're doing in slalom is we're really making it hard for people to learn 1 foot slalom. Every time somebody lifts a foot and starts crossing the wake and then puts it down, they lose half the score. And not only that, they're slower. So your first couple of competitions in 1 foot slalom, you're trying your best. You are doing everything you can to do 1 foot slalom. And then your score, though, is going backwards. It's going down. So we need to remedy that. So one thing we've tried to do to fix it is a new system. We've looked at video. We looked at, do we just do the whole thing on video and slow it down to 70%? That works, but it's also pretty cumbersome, and maybe we're not going to be able to run that at every tournament. So we got thinking about a bit of a new idea, and I'm going to tell you this idea. And then as you hear it, you might think, well, that sounds a bit odd. And then as it sort of makes more sense, you'll start to see that we think it's going to work really well. In fact, we think it's going to work so well that the World Council have voted it in to start, like there's going to be a date when this rule will take place. It will be after the American summer. So the Southern Hemisphere will have it first, and then the Northern Hemisphere will have it second. The next Worlds is going to run under this system. So I'm going to give you an introduction to it. Hopefully you understand it. And then if not, by the time this gets to you, there's been a lot of trials of this, and you will start to see that it's a very fair system. Here's how it goes. It's really simple. A 2 foot cross is going to score a 5. But at the end of this, when we add all the scores up, we're going to divide it by 10. So a 2 foot cross still scores 0.5. A 1 foot cross, the judge is going to write down a 10. But at the end of this, it divides by 10, so it's still going to score a 1. So 2 foot cross, 1 foot cross, they haven't changed. Here's where it's different. If you're going across the wake and you make any attempt to lift a foot, as long as you get that foot in the air, and just for a long enough, just so the judges can go, yep, definitely had their foot up, that's going to score a 6. If you're crossing the wake and you do more than a 6, it's more than an attempt, but you travel some distance, but it's not quite half the wake, you'll score a 7. And that can be the second half, the first half. You might lift your foot up for a little bit, put it back down, then pick it up a little bit towards the end and put it back down. So as long as all up, slightly less than half the wake is crossed on 1 foot, you're going to get a 7. If you do more than half the wake on 1 foot, and again, not first, second, or middle, as long as the judge thinks that of all of that cross, more than half of it was on 1 foot, you're going to get an 8. If you do a late lift and an early down, that'd be an 8. If you just did a late lift or you just did an early down, you'll get a 9, and a 1 foot cross is a 10, right? So the judges will do all that. So like each cross, instead of doing a squiggly line, the judge will just write down 10 or 9, 8, 7, whatever. They write down the scores as they go down. And then at the end of the sheet, they'll have a score that, is your slalom score divided by 10. But we'll go to consensus, right? So we'll look at the first cross and we'll go, all right, 2 judges gave it a 10, 1 judge gave it a 9. So you get a 10. You just got a 1 foot cross because 2 of the judges paid a 1 foot cross. Then we will do, the next cross, and 2 judges gave this one an 8, but one of them gave it a 9, so that cross gets an 8. If the judges don't get it right, and one gives it a 7, one gives it an 8, one gives it a 9, we'll simply average those scores so that all up, that skier would get an 8 for that cross. Right, so it's simple, right? Like it's really easy to do, it's really easy to judge, and then we get to the last cross in time. And the last cross in time is really easy too. We simply the judge would write down that you'd be crossing the wake, and the judge would go, oh, time went off in zone 2. They'd write zone 2. And they gave you a 10 for that cross because the whole cross was a 1 foot cross. So zone 2, 10. And then we'll compare all the other judges' scores. We'll first get consensus on the zone. We'll then get consensus on the score. And then we'll have, say, it ends up being zone 2, 10. Well, zone 2 has a multiplier of 0.5. Zone 1 has a multiplier of 0.25. Zone 3, 0.75. Zone 4 will be 1. So you just multiply it out by the zone. Don't worry, the table's really small and easy to use. So at the end of it, it's really simple for the scorer to go, zone 2, multiply 0.5, they got a 10, all right, last cross is a 5. Right? So really simple to do. Okay, so we aren't just doing this off the top of our heads either. We've tried this. At the Oceania Championships recently, the whole thing was filmed on video, and then we got 7 of the world's best judges to rejudge it using this system. So not only were these judges brand new to the system, they were also very set in their ways, and we consider them to be some of the best judges. They will judge the finals at the Worlds. So, how did they do? Well, I'm going to talk you through their results. The next footage you're going to see is from that Oceania Championships, and we've got all of those judges' scores in the one spot. So we're going to run you through some examples, we're going to show you how to do it, and then we're going to show you what the judges got. Alright, this is Toby Kelly. Let's check out his first cross. We're looking at whether it's all 2 foot, all 1 foot, or anything in between. I would say Toby's foot was up before the wake and it went down after the wake, so we're going to give that a 10. Now on his next cross, he's got his foot up. Ooh, I think that was an early down, so we're going to give that a 9. Alright, so he's got a 9 for that one. Okay, so these are subjective. All the judges are going to have a go. That looked like a 10 to me. I'm going to give that one a 10. I'll score that a 10. That looked clean. Ooh, that one I'm going to give a 10. It was close. That one looks like a 9 to me. All right, and that looks like a 10 as well. Each judge is going to have their own opinion though, so let's check them out. All right, this page takes some explaining. Across the top are the judges' names. Running down the page are the scores. So LB gave the first cross a 10, second cross a 9, third cross a 10. So on and so forth. We picked 3 of those judges to randomly give us the consensus. So the 3 judges we're using to score this run are LB, MM, and RG. And when we look at their scores, 10 was the consensus on cross 1. 9 was the consensus on cross 2. And then the rest of the crosses are 10s until we get to the 7th cross where we have to look not only at consensus on the cross, but also on the zone. And on this, you'll see there's one zone 4 with a 10, there's a 9 with the zone 4, and there's a 10 with the zone 4. We can get consensus on the 10 with the zone 4, so we're going to score that one a 10. And that gives us 69, or what will actually come out as 6.9, because we multiply it by 0.1. Now the good thing here, 1, Toby didn't lose 0.5 for just touching his foot down right next to the wake. Now you can go back and look at that slow-mo, and you'll see that it is probably a 9, but it's very close, and it's probably the right score. You'll also realize that when you go in slow-mo, you actually get a score that would be very close to how they would give a world record. So the system here has worked. Okay, next example, we've got Brad Shearer. Now he did good on his first run. On his second run, let's have a look. Okay, he's dropped that foot pretty early, so I think that one's worth a 6. He didn't get it up for long. All right, let's see how he goes on his next cross now as he makes his way in. That's better than the first cross, but not great, so we're going to give that one a 7. It did pass the 6, so it's better than that. It's a 7. All right, here we go. Dropped it pretty early again and didn't pick it back up, so that's a 6. Right, didn't pick it back up. Most of that cross was 2 foot, so it's a 6. All right, here we go. Dropped it again early. Most of the cross are 2 foot, so it's a 6. All right, it's dropped it early. Most of the cross was a 2 foot, so we're going to give that a 6 as well. He's not going to be stoked with that run, but he is going to get rewarded at least for his effort compared to the old system. Okay, this is what we got when we ran the trial. So you'll see PF, MM, and JD are our judges on this one. 2 gave a 6, 1 gave a 7. We've got consensus. That gets a 6. Then we've got a 7, 2 6s. Then we get consensus on a 6 for cross 5 and consensus on a zone for cross 5. We multiply his 6 by 0.25 and we get 0.15. That's how we end up with 26.5 or 2.65. Okay, for our last example, I'm just going to let you know what the judges scored. So on this cross, they all thought it was a 10. Right, little stumble there, but didn't affect the score. They all scored that one a 10 as well. This cross, however, had some contention. The foot arguably touched in the middle, and it was an early down. One judge gave it a 9, one judge gave it a 7, and one judge gave it an 8. All 3 of those scores, you could argue, are correct. because she may or may not have touched it in the middle, and she may or may not have early downed it. It was really close to tell. Now we have the benefit of slow-mo here, and you can see that she just touches her foot and she just early downs it at the end. So it would be easy to score that cross as a 7, 8 or 9. What we're trying to achieve here is get a more accurate score out of the boat. On our last two crosses, our consensus is a 9 or a 10. There was kind of a late lift, and that last one looks like a 10. So if we look at her sheet, we've got 3 judges to score it, and they gave her 10s for her first 2 crosses. But then we get a 9, a 7 and an 8. So PF, they caught the early down, didn't think the foot touched in the middle. JD obviously thought the foot touched in the middle and an early down, but didn't think it was enough to drop it to a 7. And MM thought the cross deserved a 7. Now we don't have to go to video. We're going to average those scores, and we're going to get a score of 8. Now, if you watch that video, you could definitely argue for the 9, for the 7 and the 8. I think an average of 8 is pretty fair. Okay, well that's the end of the video bit. I like, it's pretty simple. I think once you judge this a little bit yourself, you'll find that it's quite easy. There's no doubt that running this trial, we got more consistent results. I would argue that the scores we got out of this actually better represented what the skier did than the scores they got out of the tournament. So like, I genuinely believe this is fairer, and everybody involved with this thinks it's fairer as well. I think we're going to see some much better and more accurate scores come out because of this. One thing that didn't come up is a fall. If somebody falls, it's really simple. You just mark where they fell. So if they fell in zone 3, you would mark it in zone 3, and it doesn't matter how they were going, whether they were going to score a 7 or a 10, it doesn't matter. They're going to score a 5 because they fell off, and then the zone will multiply to their fall. So just like the end of time, if they fell in zone 3, their 5 is multiplied by 0.75. Really simple. The other thing that didn't come up is what happens if the 3 judges all give a different zone for the last cross. Well, the last cross is worked out by first getting consensus on the score, and then if you can't do that, you average the score of that last cross. And if you can't get consensus on the zone, say Judge 1 gave it Zone 1, Judge 2 gave it Zone 2, and Judge 3 said Zone 3. Well, we're going to look for the highest consensus on the zone. So Judge 1 gave it Zone 1, Judge 2 and 3 both thought it was Zone 2 or better. So we're going to give that Zone 2 because at least 2 of the judges agreed that time went off at or after Zone 2. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. What do we think it'll do to the scores? Well, if you're scoring in the sort of 0 to 10 range, you might find your score slowly drift up, but it's probably going to stay the same. If you're trying 1 foot though, it's probably going to drift up a little bit. If you're scoring between, say, 10 and 15 or 16, you're going to find that your score almost definitely drifts up, maybe by as much as a cross, because you'll find that those times you're dropping a foot, they're going to at least score something and not a 0.5. And we think that's fairer. The skiers doing the work, they should get paid something. If you're scoring above 15, now there's going to be some variations in the score here because sometimes people above 15 are getting knocked quite heavily. Their scores are going to go up. Sometimes people scoring above 15, and we found this a lot when we trialled it, is that judges would be scoring the full cross even though it was an early down, because it's just so quick and they can't really tell it accurately. So they score the full cross because they're giving the skier the benefit of the doubt. Well, the score might come down a little bit, but here's where it gets a bit funny. People who go really close to the wash tend to get knocked on 1 or 2 crosses throughout their run. In this system, if they go close to the wash, they'll either score a bit better because they're only getting 0.9, or their score will be about the same because they're getting 0.9 for every cross and not 1s for most crosses and 0.5s for some of them. So it will change your score a little bit, but it'll probably be more accurate to what you actually did, and it's probably fairer. There's no doubt this system is fairer. There's just, like, after running this trial, it's just very blatantly obvious that the system's fair. So what's next? We're going to come out with some educational material on how to judge it. If you need more than this, that's fine. Feel free to send me a message on Facebook. We'll talk through it. We'll help get the leaders of your sort of organisations up to speed on this. The rule book will change. The draft rules are nearly done. The rule committee are doing a fantastic job on them. They're really simple. You'll be able to get anybody to judge this slalom. You're like, anybody on the bank, put them in the boat or put them in front of the video screen. They will be able to judge this slalom. Okay, last but not least, the little tables that I keep talking about, they'll be released pretty soon. They'll come out when the rules come out. And start thinking about how this is going to affect you and how you're going to practice your slalom and what you might do. You might be somebody who's always been a 2-foot slalomer and now there's a reward to give it a try to go to 1 foot. You might be somebody who's traditionally been, a late lifter and now you're going to get a better score, so you might focus on speed. Or maybe you're always really clean, so you can focus harder on speed now because you're not going to lose 0.5, you're only going to lose 0.1. We don't know what it's going to do in the real world once it gets out and about. We just know that it's simple, it's easy, and it seems to be really fair. So good luck. I really hope this benefits barefooting in a big way. And we'll see how this goes. Reach out if you've got any questions or if you need some help.